All right, welcome. So we've talked about how security has to support the business, right? But that brings up a really big question. How does a company even decide what its rules are in the first place? Well, the answer is a single word: governance. And today, we're going to break down exactly what that means and why it's pretty much the foundation for everything.
Okay, to get this, let's start with something we all know: family life. Just think about it. Why do families have rules? You know, like bedtimes at 9 or no phones at the dinner table. What's the point?
Well, it's not just to be mean, right? Those rules are there to keep the family healthy, safe, and just working. And believe it or not, that's the exact same reason a company makes you create a super complicated password. It's all about keeping the whole operation safe and on track.
And that whole system of creating house rules for a business? Well, it has a name. It's called governance. You can think of it as the core framework, the foundation that the entire security house is built on.
Now here's the official kind of textbook definition, but don't let the fancy words throw you off. All it really means is that governance is the game plan. It's a system for setting the rules, deciding how things should be done, and outlining the processes to make sure the company runs smoothly and safely.
So when you strip everything else away, all of this governance stuff really boils down to answering two very, very simple but powerful questions. Number one, what absolutely has to get done? And number two, who exactly is the person responsible for making it happen? Okay, so we know governance sets the rules, but why is it so important? Why is it considered absolutely mandatory for any successful company? It really all comes down to four key reasons, or pillars.
The first pillar is direction. Governance is kind of like the company's North Star. It sets the destination. So for example, imagine an old-school bank's leadership decides, hey, our future is being 100% online. That huge strategic decision, that's governance in action, setting the direction for the entire company. Second up is accountability. This is huge. Governance makes sure that everybody knows exactly what their role is. A lot of companies use a tool called a ROSI matrix for this. It just clarifies who is R, responsible for doing the task, who is A, accountable if it fails, who needs to be C, consulted, and who just needs to be kept I, informed. No more confusion.
Pillar number 3 is risk management. Look, business is unpredictable. Surprises happen. Governance is all about preparing for those emergencies, whether it's a cyber attack or a market crash, so the company doesn't get blindsided and lose a ton of money.
And finally, we have compliance. Companies have to play by the rules, the laws of the land. Governance is what makes sure the business is following all those external regulations, like data privacy laws, so they can avoid bad press and, of course, absolutely massive fines.
Now, this next point is super important because a lot of people get this wrong. They mix up governance and management. They are not the same thing. The best way to think about it is like an architect versus a builder.
And this chart just nails the difference. On the left, you've got governance. They're the boss. They decide the what and the why. They pick the destination. Then on the right, you have management. They're the worker. Their job is the how. They're the ones actually driving the car, following the map that governance gave them.
So the job of governance can be summed up in a simple three-step loop called EDM. That stands for evaluate, direct, and monitor. First, they evaluate what the business needs. Then, they direct the teams on what to do to meet those needs. And finally, they monitor the results to make sure it's all actually working.
So this all leads to the biggest question of all. When something goes really, really wrong, like a catastrophic data breach, where does the buck stop? Who's ultimately on the hook?
And the answer is crystal clear and absolute. The board of directors and the top senior executives. They are their ones you are ultimately accountable for everything. You can delegate tasks, but you can never ever delegate that final responsibility.
So, to put it all together, a security manager might be the one who actually writes the security plan from top to bottom, but it's the board who has to approve it. And in doing so, they are officially accepting the final, ultimate responsibility for the safety of the entire company.
So we've settled that governance sets the direction and writes the rulebook. And that kind of leaves us with one last question to think about. If governance sets the rules of the game, how does management take those rules and actually build a strategy to get out on the field and win?